quick up-and-coming drivers will bring a whole new competitive edge to the series that replaces the lacklustre Formula 2.
Those ones, there's some problem with the sidewall. These are made.
The cars are Formula 1 lookalikes. Some indeed are modified Grand Prix racers. But March and Rolt, who are out testing today, and Huntingdon-based Lola, have designed and built completely new cars for Formula 3000. The Cosworth 3-litre unit that powers all the cars is the engine that dominated Grand Prix racing for 10 years, until the advent of the turbocharger made normally aspirated engines uncompetitive.
I think it's going to be very exciting because although you're basically going to have one engine, they've all got the same engine, so everyone starts off with the same advantage or disadvantage, and it is really going to be down to the ability of the drivers and chassis tuning and things like that.
Even though today the teams are still testing their cars, rivalry is already intense. So far, the Rolt team, the all-conquering outfit in last year's Formula 2 championship, are reckoned to be fastest. Their number one driver, Mike Thackwell, the European Formula 2 champion, has lapped in 1 minute 17.99 seconds in the Formula 3 Rolt, an average of over 135 miles an hour.
We've been testing the car since the end of last year, and I think it's going to bode well for a very good Formula in the future, hopefully. The engines give a lot of power for very small tyres, and they should bring back into Formula 2, the old Formula 2, should bring back a bit of wheel spin and a bit of sliding about, which is what people like to see.
How different is Formula 3000 going to be to Formula 2?
The actual speeds aren't going to change much at all because although we've lost something on the one hand, we've lost ground effects, which gave us a lot of time around a circuit. We've gained through more powerful engines, and it's going to be very similar. I can see around these circuits doing exactly the same time as we did with the F2.
So motor racing's second division moves up a gear with the introduction of Formula 3000. It promises to provide a much more testing, proving ground for drivers and much more exciting racing for the spectators.
Here at Silverstone today, we're to see not only the start of a new season of televised motorsport, but the start of a new formula. It's called Formula 3000. It's for single-seater cars, which are, in effect, pre-turbo Grand Prix cars. 450 horsepower, 4 DFV engines, narrower tyres than they were in Grand Prix racing, smaller wings, so less downforce and therefore less grip. New cars from Rolt, from March, from Lola and from others for what I think is going to be a tremendously spectacular, exciting and successful formula. On the warm-up lap, even before the race has begun, there is weather drama. As you can see, there are plumes of spray coming up from the tyres of the cars. There has been a shower of rain just before they went out. There has been a lot of agitation about whether wet tyres or dry, slick tyres should be fitted. Michel Ferte, who is in pole position, is on wet tyres. So is Mike Thackwell, second on the grid. So is John Nielsen, Thackwell's teammate. So is Christian Danner. But all the rest have decided they're going to use dry condition tyres in the hope that the course will dry out. But the drivers who are on treaded tyres, that is to say wet tyres, will certainly have a considerable advantage at the beginning of this 44-lap race, 129 miles. So, second on the grid in the right corner of your screen is the man who won last year when it was a Formula 2 race and also 1981, Mike Thackwell, the New Zealand driver, in his Rolt Cosworth. But in pole position is the Frenchman Michel Ferte, who is driving one of the new March Cosworth-powered cars. Third fastest on the grid is Emanuele Pirro, the Italian driver, driving for Mike Earle's Onyx team, and alongside him, Britain's hope for Formula 1 stardom in the future, the 1984 Formula 3 British champion, Johnny Dumfries, who is driving another Onyx March. Fifth fastest on the grid, John Nielsen, the ex-Formula 3 Danish driver, in the second of the two works Rolton. Now it's go, and it's a good start, a brilliant start for Emanuele Pirro, from the second row, who goes through number 9 to take the lead from number 1, Mike Thackwell, with... There is Mario Heighton going through, and appalling conditions for those at the back, because they've got to drive into a solid wall of spray as the leaders go from Copse to Maggots, from Maggots down to Beckett's, and it's Mike Thackwell on his wet tyres in the lead from Pirot, and Christian Danner is now up into 3rd position in his BS Automotive March. There is Claudio Langes in the converted Formula 1 Tyrrell from 1984. And Mike Thackwell has certainly made the right tyre choice at the behest of Ron Toranak, who urged him to make his mind up about what he wanted to do just before the race began. And Christian Danner, who, like Thackwell, is on treaded wet tyres, has just moved up into 2nd place. And now we're going to see real driving with not enough downforce for the power, with narrow tyres, and Thackwell really fighting it as he goes round the left-hander at Club. Danner is 2nd. In 3rd position it is Pirot. In 4th position it's Ferte. There is Roberto Moreno in 5th place. Mario Heighton is in 6th place. John Nielsen is 7th. There is Thomas Kaiser, the Swedish driver, at the end of lap 1 with 43 to go. Thackwell leads in the Rult. In 2nd place it's Danner. In 3rd position it is Pirot. It's Ferte. In 4th position it is Pirot. And there are 1 or 2 engines misfiring already, because the moisture seems to be getting at the ignition systems of some of them. Now the big problem is, are the conditions going to dry out? Is a dry line going to appear on the course? In which case, when will they come in to change from wet tyres to slicks? Well, that is all in the future and probably some way away, because although the skies are clear, dry, no rain clouds, the road is still very wet indeed as Thackwell comes out of Chapel, as Danner in the white BS Automotive March holds 2nd place. In 3rd place behind him is Ferte in the March. There in the red and white March is Pirot, who is in 4th position. There is Roberto Moreno, who finished 2nd here dramatically last year. And in 6th position now is Nielsen, who has passed Mario Heighton, who is in 7th place. So here is the Rult. 450 horsepower from the Cosworth V8 engine, and a battle developing for 2nd place between the tall, amiable, good-humoured German Christian Danner from Munich, and behind him Michel Ferte, the man who won, and Ferte going through and taking 2nd place in the chicane, and he's through. Michel Ferte, the Frenchman from Falaise, the brother of Alain Ferte, who is also in this race, is up into 2nd place. Christian Danner down to 3rd. And off goes Dumfries, Johnny Dumfries, who everybody expected and hoped would do well, is out of the international trophy on only the 3rd lap. Well, not an auspicious start for the man who did so well in Formula 3 last year, 2nd in the European Championship. And let's look at it again as Dumfries runs off the course, totally out of control on the slippery grass. A flash of sparks as he hits the metal Armco barrier, and Dumfries will have deranged his suspension badly at the back. And you can see there's mud on the right-hand pod as the sad Scotsman walks back and is asked by a marshal if he's okay. Well, he very clearly is okay physically, but I'm sure not at all okay mentally. And now, judge for yourselves whether Michel Ferte, 26 years old, the French Formula 3 champion of 1982 and 83, the man who won at Monaco last year, is catching Thackwell. Thackwell taking a wide line as he comes out of Stowe, goes down to Club, and you better watch because now the course is starting to dry out, and the time will come when the drivers have to try and find wet patches to keep their tyres cool, and they'll come in at what they hope is the right moment to change from wets to slicks.
Yes, already you can see the cars moving into the wetter parts of the track. The two leaders here, Thackwell and Fairtay. You'll see Thackwell after the chicane he's going through now. He'll move over towards the pit wall, which is where the wetter part of the track is, to keep those wet tyres as cool as possible to make them last as long as possible. But certainly the lead they're pulling out is very large at the moment, and I think their choice has been right.
Streff is going into the pits. Philippe Streff in the AGS is going into the pits. He's had an awful lot of trouble. The car is the Henri Julien designed car. AGS, incidentally, stands for Automobile Golf-Aron Sportive, and Streff has decided he's had enough of the slicks and he wants some wet tyres on. Wet tyres, let me very quickly explain again to those of you who don't know, means to say that instead of having no tread pattern, as you can see he has got on his tyres now, he will have a different compound and a different type of tyre with a heavy tread pattern which will enable it to clear water from the track and therefore to get grip on the ground, something that is highly desirable in today's conditions. Thackwell into Copse, out of Copse into fifth gear. Closing up on a tail-ender. Is he going to be held up? Will this give Fairtay the opportunity to close up? Into Maggots, the left-hander, flat out in fifth. Down to third gear at about 120 miles an hour for Beckett's, the right-hander. At sea, Fairtay is gaining. Out of Beckett's up into fourth gear. Round Chapel Curve, the left-hander. Into fifth gear. Now, down the Hanger Straight. The gap between Thackwell and Fairtay is now under 2 seconds. Into Stowe, fourth gear, 140 miles an hour. Let it run out. Onto the rumble bars at the left, down to Club Corner. That's a right-hander, fourth gear, 140 miles an hour in the dry, slower than that in the wet, of course. Thackwell accelerates out of Club into fifth gear, up to 160 miles an hour. Fairtay is going even quicker on the lap. Down to Woodcote, the gap was 1.8 seconds. Philippe Streff has retired from the race. Philippe Streff in the AGS retired on lap 10 out of 44, and the gap between Thackwell and Fairtay now is 1.53 seconds. And the order now on lap 13, we've forgotten Christian Danner for a while, but he's still there. It's Thackwell leading, tight up behind him. In the march is Fairtay, there he is in second place. In third place in another march, Danner. In fourth place is John Nielsen, the Danish driver, in the second of the Rults, and this is the leading Rult. In fifth place behind Nielsen, as you know, is number 9, Pirro, hotly pursued by number 20, Roberto Moreno, and those two are the two leading slick-tired cars which could yet move up through the field. Stowe, Thackwell, Fairtay. There is Christian Danner in the distinctively liveried budget march. That is Mario Heighton with the green lettering on the rear of his Lola wing. And John Nielsen is gaining fast, and you can always tell Christian Danner, he's enormously tall, and his head sticks right out of the top of the car, and he has to have an extra high roll bar put on it because of that. Still in with a chance of getting higher. And now John Nielsen, as we watch the leaders go round Stowe, has got past Christian Danner up into third position. As Claudio Langes, the Italian driver, in the Tyrrell, that's a 1984 Tyrrell, comes into the pits. And here is an interesting development, to put it mildly. Thackwell, number 1, leads. Fairtay, number 3, is in second place. Nielsen in the second Rult is third. Danner is fourth, but in fifth position is the young Italian, Gabriele Tarquini, driving in his first big race in a racing car as opposed to karts. He's in a San Remo March, this ex-kart world champion in the 125 class. He only drove in 12 Formula 3 races last year, but he's ahead of everybody except Thackwell Ferte, Nielsen and Dana, and that's a superb achievement. And up at the front, Thackwell, who really is driving a thinking race, as you would expect from this very experienced young man, who at the age of 19 was the youngest driver ever to take part in a Formula One Grand Prix race, which he did in the Tyrrell. And he's also driven for Arrows in Formula One, and so they go into Stowe together. Ferte has caught Thackwell, and there is Tarquini, the young Italian, as I said, in 5th position now, because he has got ahead of number 9 Pirro. He has got ahead of Roberto Moreno, and Moreno is the man who is hoping for the 2nd Tolman seat in Grand Prix racing this year, so that gives an indication of the opposition that he has got in front of. Here is possibly a star of the future, Gabriel Tarquini, as Ferte challenges Thackwell for the lead and takes it at the chicane and only just gets through it. Wonderful! Michel Ferte crosses the line at the end of lap 21 in the lead from Mike Thackwell. So the Frenchman has made good a deficit of 3.8 seconds at one time in this race, and now a March for the first time leads this Formula 3000 initial race of this new formula, and if all the rest of them are like this, that'll do for me. Michel Ferte then, 26 years old, from Falaise, ex-Formula 3 champion, leads. Let's look at it again. Underneath the bridge on the approach to Woodcote, and Michel Ferte from underneath Mike Thackwell's rear wing dives for the inside lane, gets his front wheels far enough up alongside Thackwell to make Thackwell give way, which he does. Ferte slides wide, but there's no way that Thackwell is going to get through there. Watch Ferte clip the exit as he does so, and he leads now on lap 22. Mike Thackwell in the Ralt, with in 3rd position John Nielsen in the 2nd Ralt, in 4th position Christian Dana, and then lapped but in 5th place Gabriel Tarquini, followed by in 6th position then Pirro and Moreno.
Well, we've already gone half distance now on these wet tyres, and still no signs at all of them going into the pits. And of course we can see they're visually pulling away very rapidly from the leading slick tyres of Pirro, and so they could well yet go the distance on these wet tyres. Tarquini, I believe, started from the pit lane. We didn't see him on the grid. I think they had a late change of tyres in the pit lane, which is why we didn't notice that he started on wet tyres, and could well have come right from the back of the field to come up to this very, very impressive 5th position in his first ever major international race.
And this is John Nielsen, the Danish driver, and there have been precious few of those in the top echelons of motor racing. But John Nielsen, number 2 then, who lives in Boyens, or Flensburg actually, which is on the Danish border in Germany, is now holding that 3rd position with ease, and he's closing up on Gabriel Tarquini, who is in 5th place but almost a lap behind Nielsen. In other words, Nielsen is about to lap the 5th place man Tarquini, with Thackwell in 2nd place, Ferte leading, this man number 2, Nielsen in 3rd position in the Ralt. And I think in a few moments' time, the choice of Thackwell in 2nd place and Ferte the leader to start the race on wet tyres is going to be really totally vindicated, because there are some very, very heavy black clouds looming. Oh, there they are, you see them in the background. They're moving our way, and I suspect they're going to dump a load of water on the circuit before very much longer, in which case Pirro and Moreno on slicks and all the others on slicks are going to be in a somewhat embarrassing position, and Ferte and Thackwell will absolutely romp away. It means to say that Tarquini could move up even further. Nielsen is on wet tyres as well, so all the first 3, and Dana for that matter, all the first 5 now are on wets. And there's the confirmation of the fact that rain has arrived. The umbrellas are up, and you can see that there's much bigger roosters of spray coming up from the rear tyres as they approached Abbey, which itself seems to be fairly dry. Mario Heighton in the distinctive white and green winged Lola gives way and allows Ferte through. There's Thackwell coming up behind him. Now the Dane, number 2, 29-year-old John Nielsen from Flensburg is closing on Mike Thackwell, and we could yet see a battle for second place between teammates. Ferte in the red and white car, taking Alain Ferte. This is brother, younger brother, passing older brother, and he's done so. Thanks, Alain. Don't mention it, Michel. Into the chicane, right, left, right. What conditions! This is certainly the ultimate test of these Formula 3000 drivers. Much less downforce than in Grand Prix racing, and by downforce I mean the pressure which is exerted on the tyres through the air which is displaced by the body and therefore providing grip. Much less downforce because they've got smaller wings than the Grand Prix cars have, a much smaller tyre area because they have deliberately been limited, but on the other hand less power. And Tassin here in the PMC Williams, Thierry Tassin, the ex-Formula 3 driver who last year won the Spa 24-hour saloon car race and made himself a hero of Belgium, his home country, in the process, is into, presumably, the pits to change tyres. Thomas Kaiser is coming into the pits. There's a flood of cars. There's Kaiser in the Hello Sweden car. And it's called Hello Sweden because he has a consortium of Swedish businessmen backing him up. Roberto Moreno is giving it best and coming in. He's going to get in and say, the conditions are impossible on slick tyres, put me on wets. And there is the 010 Tyrrell with the new side pods, and on go the big spanners. Brian Lyles, who is the Tyrrell team manager and race engineer, lifts the jack at the front and spin. That's Lamberto Leone spinning in the second of the two PMC Williams. That's a man who used to drive it. You can see how slippery it is. He can't even get straight on the straight. That's how bad it is. Lap 37. It's 5 seconds only now between Thackwell and Nielsen. And now the question we ask ourselves is, are there any team orders in the Ralt team? Will Mike Thackwell be given precedence over the new man to the team, John Nielsen? I don't know of any team orders, and I don't think so. Ferte now is leading Mike Thackwell by 3.44 seconds, and Nielsen, as the rain fairly belts down, is 6 seconds behind Thackwell. So Thackwell actually is catching Ferte. The rain is coming down in buckets now. It's absolutely pelting down. In fact, it looks more like sleet, cold, bitter sleet than rain. It's hail and sleet and rain all mixed together. And Mike Thackwell seems to be charging in these appalling conditions, and so is Nielsen. We are on lap 38. It's a 44-lap race. We're getting very much into the closing stages, and the first, second and third men are closing up. Here's the leader. Out of club corner and up to Abbey. And Thackwell is right behind him. There's going to be a change of leadership, I think, at the chicane on lap 38. They go surging past, and Thackwell goes through on the inside. And Mike Thackwell has taken the lead again on lap 38 with a bit of really daring-do driving into the chicane. I don't know whether Ferte knew that he was there, and meantime the gap between Ferte, who is now second, and John Nielsen, who is third, is only 3 seconds. A new leader, here he is, number 1, Mike Thackwell. A new second-place man, displaced from first, Michel Ferte. Closing up on him all the time is John Nielsen, and the water is seemingly being hose-piped onto the circuit. Now, first, second and third, together. Not only onto the circuit, but into our camera lenses as well.
Well, it certainly gives you a good example. If you can imagine how hard it is for the cameras to see through the spray, this is exactly all you see when you're driving a car. If you're in second place, as Ferte is now, this is what you see, absolutely nothing. You get used to the track and everything else. You look out sideways to try and get some landmarks for braking points, but you see very, very little ahead of you, and you have to just use your experience and knowledge of the circuit. There is Ferte now. He's probably upset. He's going to have a go back at Thackwell, but all the time, maybe he doesn't even know. He's got Nielsen pulling in behind him. And there, a very big slide from who knows who.
Well, I certainly don't, but he's right up with Nielsen, I'll tell you that. And we are now on lap 39 in what is going to be a real grandstand finish, because there is Thackwell, there is Ferte, and there is the rainbow. The pot of gold for somebody is at the finish point exactly. Who is going to go through the yellow of the rainbow at the end of these 44 laps first? At the moment, it looks like Thackwell. Thackwell leads, Ferte second, Nielsen third, Danner fourth, all on the same lap. Christian Danner, who we have not seen recently, is still heroically on the same lap as the Ralts of Thackwell, number 1, the leader, Nielsen, number 2 in third position, and Michel Ferte, number 3 in second place. Then in fifth place, it's still heroically young Gabriele Tarquini, the Italian in the San Remo March. In sixth position, in spite of his pit stop, is Roberto Moreno. Seventh is Pirro. In eighth position, it is Alain Ferte, and there is the leader. He is on lap 40. And there is Ferte, and off spins Moreno, and Woodcote but regains the circuit. You'll see him in a moment as he comes towards club. Conditions coming out of the chicane are quite appalling now. The moment you touch the accelerator and you get that 450 horsepower lump of power, the rear tyres can break away, as they did for Moreno, but he recovered superbly. Now, Thackwell is approaching the point where Moreno just had trouble. The chicane is absolutely awash. Thackwell is through. The gap now between Thackwell and Ferte. And Thackwell accelerates away, and off goes Ferte into the chicane, into the catch fencing of Woodcote. There is Ferte, and through into second place goes John Nielsen. Michel Ferte on lap 40, right at the end of it, is reversing out, and the whole of his nose cone is missing, the foot box and the master cylinders that are there. This is, somebody ought to be stopping him, because he's going to be in, it looks to me as though the master cylinders have been torn off the front of the bulkhead, but I hope I'm wrong for his sake. I must be. Well, then, do you remember last year, Roberto Moreno came into the chicane and lost it and stalled his engine. And here is Roberto Moreno this year. Roberto Moreno in the Tyrrell goes into the chicane right, goes into the chicane left. Now watch him start to lose it. The back swings right round to the right. Moreno has one hand right off the wheel. Look at him looking over to the right to the car to see where he's got to steer it. Now to the left, a full 360-degree turn on conditions which are a combination of ice and grease from the point of view of grip, but he didn't even stop.
So Thackwell there, still you can even see the aquaplaning into Stowe. There's puddles there and it's floating, and he's still got another lap and a half of very difficult motoring ahead of him before he's going to score this third of international trophy wins, if indeed he can get to the line. But he's driven brilliantly throughout. He gave his best fighting Ferte when he probably there. Oh, a huge slide out of club. I mean, that's fourth gear, 120 miles an hour. That's driving fast and beautiful balance control.
And I'm sure it won't have worried Mike. The word laconic is the best way to describe him. And he's now into Woodcote, into the chicane for the 43rd and last but one time. Tiptoeing his way through. Misfiring a bit on the exit. There may either be dampness or the rev limiter may be playing up. There were a lot of rev limiter problems in practice. Perhaps not altogether surprising, considering this is the first time they've been used. But now on lap 44, the last lap, there goes the winner designate. He hasn't got very far to go now as he goes into Maggots and now down to Beckett's. The winner designate being Mike Thackwell, the 24-year-old New Zealander, the 1984 Formula 2 champion of Europe, who has a tradition of racing in his family because his father, Ray, was a Speedway and a Formula 2 driver. The youngest ever Formula 1 driver who won the Grovewood Award in 1979, has driven Formula 1 Grand Prix Arrows and Tyrrell cars, and now he's going to add to his victories in the International Trophy 1981 and 1984, the first ever Formula 3000 race, the International Trophy at Silverstone in 1985. Leading his teammate John Nielsen, so it is indeed going to be a famous victory for Ron Toranak's Ralts, notwithstanding the fact that the marches were right up there with them and indeed ahead of them for a lot of the race. But it's where you are when the checkered flag falls that matters, and it's going to do that very shortly now for Mike Thackwell, under the bridge for the last time, into the Woodcote chicane for the last time. The right, the left, the right, he sees the checkered flag. He takes the checkered flag. Mike Thackwell for Ralt and for Bridgestone has won the International Trophy and achieved his ambition by making it 3 times. And now we look for John Nielsen, his teammate, to come through in 2nd position, and he's coming underneath the bridge now, and it is going to be a win for Ralt, a 2nd place for Ralt, a fine 2nd place for John Nielsen in his first race in this new formula out of Formula 3. He takes the checkered flag and finishes 2nd, and somewhere behind them, staggering up to go under the bridge and into the chicane, is Michel Ferte, who gave Mike Thackwell such a stirring run for his money for so long, leading the race, only to go off at Woodcote, the exit of Woodcote a couple of laps ago, to tear the front off his car and still keep running. And as I look down the circuit, I see no sign of Ferte. Yes, he's on his way. Michel Ferte, there he is. Well, what a way to finish a motor race, with a twisted wing at the back nearly ripped off, with the whole of the nose cone missing. But it's finishing that matters, and Michel Ferte is going to do it as Thomas Kaiser and Mario Heighton go through the chicane. Michel Ferte, in the first of the marches to finish, takes a fine 3rd place, and only the first 3 finished on the same lap. So Formula 3000 is exciting, is dramatic, has got a future, and we've had proof of that with that fine victory by Mike Thackwell in his Ralt, ahead of his teammate John Nielsen, who also made a record lap. 3rd was Michel Ferte in the march, 4th in another march Christian Danner, 5th Tarquini, and 6th Roberto Moreno.